everyone, and welcome back to my studio, the Pottery Corner, down on the south coast of England near Chichester. Welcome along. I've been saying for some time with the kiln unloadings that I would do my top 10 glazes, my top 10. So I thought today I would just quickly run through my top 10 glazes. So the glazes that shall I say can't live without? That's a bit dramatic. It's a bit dramatic to say that, but yes, they're glazes that I use a lot. They're glazes that the students use a lot here at the Pottery Corner, so they are all round good do's. It's very, very difficult to pick 10, I have to say. Really hard. Standing looking at my glaze storage, there's probably, I don't like to admit it, but there are probably about 80 glazes. It's very difficult to trim 80 glazes down to 10. But I would say that this particular 10 would be a good place to start if you're a beginner, to get a palette of colours that you can then experiment with. So that's kind of where I'm coming from today, is to give you an overall flavour of my 10 I can't live without glazes. So let's dive in with number 1. I'm going to do them in alphabetical order so that it doesn't make it look like one glaze is more favourite than another. So I've put them into alphabetical order. So our first one is Amaco's Blue Rutile, which is a fabulous glaze. So this is Blue Rutile in its pot by Amaco, and the Potter's Choice number, the PC number, is PC20. If you'd like to order it that way, you can find all of Amaco's glazes by the glaze number, and this one is Potter's Choice 20. Okay, so Blue Rutile is one of the very first glazes that I ever bought when I was a beginner. And it's a really good doer. So I've done a test tile of it, and this is my original Blue Rutile test tile. I use a white stoneware body for most of my work, so I tend to do my test tiles on my white stoneware body. So these are bisque textured tiles. I keep a little pile of them ready for when I buy a new glaze, and then I'll do a test tile and some mixes. We'll talk about that as we go along, so I can see what the glaze does when it's mixed with other glazes. So that is Blue Rutile on its own, and as you can see, it's very good on texture. So it's broken to the sort of the browner colour over the top of the texture and left the blue. Now, when it's not used over texture, it's equally as lovely. This particular mug is glazed with Blue Rutile right the way over. So that is just one glaze on there, 3 coats of Amaco's Blue Rutile. And again, you can see that it's breaking on the handle and on the rim, but it leaves this lovely sort of heathery blue tones. It's really, really pretty. So number 1, Blue Rutile. And what I've done is I've actually put together some of the mixes of these glazes. So Blue Rutile over Cobalt, so another one that's coming up. Oh, spoiler alert, in a minute. So that is Blue Rutile over Cobalt. So again, you're getting more bang for your buck because you're getting another glaze colour by layering your glazes. So that tile is 2 coats of Blue Rutile over 2 coats of Cobalt. So next on the list is, no surprise, is Amaco's Cobalt. So this is Amaco's Cobalt on its own, 3 coats on a textured tile. And that is the bottle. And the glaze number, the Amaco glaze number, is C20. So this is a Celadon glaze rather than a Potter's Choice glaze, both by Amaco. So Amaco have a selection of Celadon glazes, which are the clear, shiny glazes. And then they have the Potter's Choice glazes, which tend to be more opaque. So this one is Amaco's Cobalt, and the glaze number is C20, and it comes out this beautiful blue. It's really lovely, and the more layers you apply, the deeper the blue. This bowl on the outside has been glazed with Amaco's Cobalt, and I would say there's 4 coats on there, and you can see it's a really rich, deep, shiny blue. Very, very, very nice. And I use that quite a lot on my work because I just love the depth of the blue. Really pretty. So that one is Amaco's Cobalt. Next on the list is Amaco's Glacier. So this again is one of Amaco's Celadon glazes. It's a nice aqua colour, turquoisey tone. So this is a Celadon glaze again. So it's a clear, shiny glaze called Glacier, and the glaze number is C19, and that is my test tile of this particular glaze. I use that a lot. I use Glacier probably as one of the glazes I use the most. I use it very often as a background glaze, so this particular bowl has got Glacier as the background glaze, and then I've decorated with slips and other coloured glazes. But I like Glacier because it's not too much of a colour, but nonetheless it gives a colour, but you can see through it. So it's a really nice glaze to use over the top of transfers, for instance. And this mug is a good example of that. So I've put some transfers on there of cactuses and then put Glacier over the top, so you can still see the transfers underneath. So that one is Amaco's Glacier. Next on the list, Amaco's Indigo Float. Okay, so this, we're back to Potter's Choice. So this is a Potter's Choice glaze, and it's PC23, and that is Amaco's Indigo Float. This is my tile of Indigo Float. As you can see, it does break on texture to a sort of a greeny colour. I tend not to use Indigo Float on its own. I have used it in the past on things, but I find it's a really good glaze to layer over the top of other glazes. So on that basis, this is probably my next favourite combination. So this is Obsidian 2 coats, underneath Indigo Float 2 coats, and this bowl has that combination on it. So that's 2 coats of Obsidian and then 2 coats of Indigo Float over the top. And I love the movement and the different coloured blues from that particular layering. So it's really pretty. A lovely sort of deep blue, but with interest in the surface. Really pretty. So that's Indigo Float. Next on the list is a very unassuming glaze. It's called Iron Luster. So Amaco's Iron Luster, and the glaze number is PC33. Now, on the label, it's green. When it comes out on my test tile, it's a basket brown colour, which is rather interesting. I'm not sure whether I burn it too hot or whether I burn it too cold, but I have never got Iron Luster to do this green. So it's an interesting one. When you buy a glaze and it says that on the label and then you don't get that, it's actually quite disappointing. But Iron Luster is actually a very good doer. And my favourite combination of Iron Luster is Iron Luster under Oatmeal. So that is Iron Luster under Oatmeal. And that's a really lovely combination, and it brings out all sorts of colours. You get blues, you get greens, you get the browns. It's really pretty when it's used on a piece, say for instance a mug. I haven't got any because they've all sold, so clearly people like that. So that's Iron Luster 2 coats underneath Oatmeal 2 coats. So yes, that's a good do. And this particular tile is the same combination but obviously the tile is slightly more textured, so you get a slightly different colour on there. But it's interesting to take the two. This is a sort of more of a flat tile, and this one's more of a textured tile. So yes, that's Iron Lustre underneath Oatmeal, so that's a really good do. And next we have Oatmeal. So we're just talking about Oatmeal. So this is Potter's Choice, Amaco's Potter's Choice Oatmeal, and the glaze number is PC31. On its own, it looks like vanilla custard. That's how I describe it. It kind of is a yellowy cream with speckles in it, so it looks a bit like vanilla custard. Again, a good glaze. This is a good glaze because it helps other things move. It moves on things. So this particular tile we've had before, the Iron Lustre with the Oatmeal on the top, you wouldn't expect the Oatmeal to produce those sort of blues and greens and colours over the top of the Iron Lustre. This is Oatmeal ×2 with with Blue Midnight ×2, which is another Amaco glaze. So again, you can see that the Oatmeal is sitting on the surface doing interesting things. So that is Amaco's Oatmeal. Next, another particular favourite of mine, which is Amaco's Obsidian. So Obsidian again is a celadon glaze, and the glaze number is C1, and it literally is black. So I mean, it's as simple as that, but I do use Obsidian underneath other glazes, and it changes the colour, as we will see in a bit. So that one is another celadon glaze by Amaco, and we'll find some more tiles with that combination on as we go. Next, getting through these now, aren't we? This is Amaco's Rainforest. Again, a celadon glaze, so a shiny see-through glaze. And the glaze number for this one is C49. And this is my test tile of Rainforest. Now you can see the texture on this tile because the Rainforest has sat down into the texture, and it's almost like writing with a pencil. It really does pick up the fine detail and leave you with this lovely, you can see all the texture that you've put on a piece. So it's a really, really good glaze if you're using texture on your work. Now, Rainforest. This is Rainforest with our friend Blue Rutile. So this is Blue Rutile, 2 coats underneath Rainforest. So you can see this is the original Blue Rutile tile. This is the original Rainforest tile. And when you layer them, you get that. So immediately, out of your 10 glaze pots, you've already got an 11th glaze by using the two together. And then Rainforest is very, very good, either layered or mixed with snow. So this is 2 coats of Rainforest underneath 2 coats of Amaco Snow. Now obviously Amaco Snow is white, and you get this lovely sort of oil spotty surface. It's really lovely and works very well. So if you were to stripe something, for instance, if you've got Amaco Snow and Amaco Rainforest and you had a mixed band in the middle, that's the mixed band that you'd get in the middle. So really nice. And also you can see it's quite a bit lighter than the original Rainforest tile. And then I also mix Rainforest and snow together in a pot. So I weigh the glaze for the piece that I'm doing. I'll put 25 grams of each glaze into a little pot. The reason that I weigh it is so that I know I can reproduce that colour. If I run out, I can reproduce it because I've weighed the glaze. So I would use 50-50 mixed in a little pot, and the difference is quite startling. So that is Rainforest and snow 50-50 mix. That is Rainforest layered underneath snow, and they are fundamentally different. And therefore, you can actually make yourself even more glazes by mixing the glazes together rather than just layering the glazes. So that is Amaco's Rainforest. Next up, we've got Smoky Merlot. So this again is a Potter's Choice Amaco glaze, and the glaze number is PC57. So this is my original tile of Smoky Merlot, 3 coats. And it's a really good opaque glaze, so you can't see through it. It will sit in texture, but it won't show up the texture the same way that the Rainforest does. But it's a very good glaze, and it gives you those purpley tones. And as I was saying earlier, I use Smoky Merlot over Obsidian. So that is Obsidian with 2 coats, with Smoky Merlot 2 coats over the top. And again, you can see the difference between the Smoky Merlot without the Obsidian and the Smoky Merlot with the Obsidian. So again, you've made yourself another glaze colour by using the top 10 glazes and then making your own combinations of those. And that's a really lovely purple. I know people find it difficult to find a purple, so that Obsidian with Smoky Merlot is a really good one. So that is Smoky Merlot. The next one we have is Amaco Seaweed. Now, Amaco Seaweed is a Potter's Choice, and the glaze number is PC42. Now, Seaweed is the runniest glaze of these top 10 glazes. It will run, so be careful with your kiln shelves not to take the seaweed too far down the outside of a pot, because it will run. And this is probably my favourite combination for glazing of mugs, and people really like it. This is Amaco Snow on the inside and on the rim, and this is the Potter's Choice Cobalt that we talked about earlier, overlapped with the seaweed in the middle. And you can see that the seaweed gives it its interest. It's flowed all the way over the top of the cobalt. I hope you can see that, pick that up on the camera. And then, you know, it really is a good glaze. It runs and does interesting things and gives you interesting surfaces. The spots on this bowl are also in seaweed, so I do use it quite a lot. You have to be careful how you use seaweed. On its own, it's a rather dirty pond-like green, so that is Smoky Merlot 3 coats. As you can see, it does break on texture. It's just a bit toad-like for me, but it is an exceptionally good glaze when you use it over or under other glazes. So this one, for instance, is ice, Amaco's ice with seaweed over. This one is seaweed over sky. Now I really like that, use that combination a lot. That's a really good tile. So that's 2 coats of seaweed over the top of 2 coats of Amaco's Celadon Glaze Sky. This one is Obsidian, so going back to our Obsidian from earlier, 2 coats of Obsidian underneath 2 coats of seaweed. So again, you can see how you can build up a library of different glazes just from 10 pots. This one is iron luster and seaweed. So we've got 2 coats of iron luster and 2 coats of seaweed over the top. And again, it gives you a slightly different greener palette to the iron luster and oatmeal that we looked at earlier. So this is the iron luster with oatmeal, and this is the iron luster with seaweed. So you can see they're very slightly different, but again, a different coloured glaze. And shall we say, last but by no means least, we have textured turquoise. So again, this is an Amaco Potter's Choice glaze, and the glaze number is PC25, and that's textured turquoise. And the tile of textured turquoise on its own is this. And as it says on the tin, yes, it's turquoise. Really very pretty. It does sit in texture, but it is not a Celadon glaze. So it will cover your texture because it's slightly opaque. So that's textured turquoise on its own. Again, textured turquoise with oatmeal. So the two of the top 10 glazes make this tile. So that's textured turquoise, 2 coats underneath, 2 coats of oatmeal. So you can see again, you've got a third glaze from those 2 single glazes, and a good one too that I use quite a bit. And then this is iron yellow under textured turquoise, so a different glaze, iron yellow under textured turquoise. And this one is textured turquoise with blue lagoon. So I do use it quite a lot with different combinations. Comes out that sort of turquoise colour, which again is a lovely colour, and lots of people like it. So there you are, my top 10 glazes. What's your top 10? Write it in the comments. Let me know. Let me know if these are glazes that you just can't live without. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's been informative. If you're just starting out, you can buy, say, 10 glazes over a period of time and actually make yourself your test tiles and try out all the different combinations before you actually put them on your work. That way you won't be disappointed when you get something out of the kiln that's got a glaze combination that you haven't tried before. So roll yourself a slab, pop some texture on it, bisque fire them, and then use your test tiles. That's all from me this week. I hope everybody's okay. Drop me a comment if there's anything you'd like to add, and tell me your glazes. Tell me the ones that you can't live without. I'd love to know. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you all on the next one. Bye for now.